It's that time of year where the roads are full of water, it's muddy, it's slippery, and more of an SUV style car seems appropriate. This has been my car at the moment, an Audi Etron. You can see it's covered in mud. I've been making use of it as I commute across the New Forest here. So having a slightly larger SUV car feels good for this time of year, but practical all year round as well. And there's quite a good choice of electric SUVs. I've got quite a few of them here in the warehouse at the moment, so I thought I'd run through a bit of a comparison of each one. Keep it fairly brief, bit of pros and cons of each of these electric cars I've got here, bit about real world range, what I like most, dislike, and I'm also going to do some comparison with some boxes and see how many boxes I can fit in each. And I happen to have in the warehouse here also a Mercedes GLC, a Porsche Cayenne, and a BMW X5. So maybe we see how many boxes they fit and how they compare. So if you've already got one of these cars and you're thinking about going EV, how do these compare exactly? Let's get on with it, let's go. Let's start with the car. I'm using it at the moment. This is an Etron 55 Sportback. Now, I've covered the Audi Etron before. I had one for a little while before, and I remember really liking it. They've been great. Now, these were really expensive new, 60, 70, 80,000 pounds. They're still the Q8 Etron, it's called now. But these now on the used market can be down in the mid-20s. I've seen them as low as 20,000 pounds. So that's a smaller battery version, slightly limited range on those, maybe 160 to 200 miles. Because they're quite a thirsty car. That's its downside. But a car like this is the bigger battery. This is a Sportback version. These are in the 30s. For me, it's like the electric version of a Range Rover Sport. Lovely ride quality. It's on air suspension. This is it lifted up and it's off-road mode, which has been useful. But lovely ride quality, very refined, so quiet inside, really well isolated from the road. You don't even hear it going through massive puddles. Lovely luxury interior. Just take a look at this here. It's just a really nice thing. The headlights are brilliant. They do sometimes have the digital wing mirrors. They take a bit of getting used to, but you kind of do. So its downside is it's a bit thirsty, but on the 55s, you will get over 200 miles of real world range, and its charging is very fast. Now, these have got peak 150 kilowatt charging speed, but it holds that charging speed all the way through, right until the very top. So it's thirsty, but it charges really fast, and I really like it, and I think they're really good value. So this is a Jaguar I-Pace, been around a little bit now, and again, just a good car. It does a couple hundred miles of range, hasn't got sort of headline charging speed, but it's okay. What this does bring to the market is, A, these are becoming much more affordable now. So they've been around for a couple of years, and you see these down into the 20s, even quite a late one like this, a 2022, with a later software and a really good spec is in mid-upper 30s. And there's a good choice out there. I like them like this, all in black, of course. Now, what this does bring is a bit of sort of quality feel to the inside, some nice trimmings. It feels premium. Some of them, like this one, have got air suspension so they can come right up. Matrix headlights, yes, very good. So a nice spec choice. You've got to pick apart. Now, this one's an HSE, some of the SE spec, but even some of the HSEs don't have things like heated steering wheel, so you do have to look at the spec quite carefully. But there's a few options in there. I think they're a good-looking car. They're not as spacious in the back as some, so we'll do the practicality test in a minute. But a good all-rounder, and I think they're really good value for money. A good premium-feeling car. It's very comfortable. It's quite quick. It's nice to drive. For the money that they're out there for now, I think they're good. Worth a look. So, of course, we've got to include the Tesla Model Y. Now, these are becoming good value now. They've lost a bit of money recently, so you find a dual-motor, long-range example like this one on the used market for under £40,000. The key benefits of Tesla are, of course, a supercharging network. It's very easy to use, and the route planning is brilliant. So if it's your first electric car, these do make it really easy. And you've got to bear in mind, we're talking a good real-world range in a dual-motor version of 280, even 300 miles. So you can drive from here on the south coast to Edinburgh with one single 30-minute charging stop. If you don't believe me, check out one of my videos. Although in that video, I drove from Edinburgh down to here. You've got things like dog mode, sentry mode, great software, great app, brilliant use of space because it's not too big, but the space inside is really good. It's a great car, no denying it. There are a couple of downsides. The ride is firmer than some cars. Now, this doesn't have air suspension like the e-tron and Jaguar, and it is a stiffer ride compared to other cars that we're going to look at in a minute. It also doesn't have any lights in the door handles here. I'd like to see some lights in here so at night you can see the handles. And the headlights aren't brilliant. There's no kind of dynamic active matrix, not yet at least, but maybe a software update will bring that. But the Model Y, quite rightly, a brilliant car. Well built, just doesn't have the kind of premium feeling like maybe the e-tron or the Jaguar here, but there's no denying, well made, no servicing routine on these either. Practical things like 2 phone chargers, good center console. And there's just nothing ever goes wrong on these things. Very rare we see an issue of a Model Y. And they've been around for a couple of years now. Some have covered some quite high mileage and utterly reliable and brilliant with very, very little maintenance ever. Typically a tyre and the odd wiper blade. I'm going to include the MG ZS in this lineup. Now, it's not as big a car as some. We'll see the comparisons for space. And it's a two-wheel drive only. But this is here because it is kind of an equivalent to something like a Nissan Qashqai, a good practical family car and good value. Now, I see these in the used market down to about £10,000, £12,000 even. Now, that's an older version with higher mileage. But even a late facelift version like this with big battery is under £25,000. And this is capable of 250, 300 miles, if more, even if you're a bit more careful. So it's a good range car for good money for a car that isn't very old and it feels very fresh. So good value, actually seem quite well made, they drive nicely, quite comfortable ride. On the downside, well, I guess it's not as premium feeling as some, but and the software, the text on the screen sometimes is a little bit small, but I can't pick it apart from too much other than it just doesn't have as much space as some of the others. It's just a good value, practical family car. Hyundai Ioniq 5, we're seeing these as some good value cars as well. From big battery, four-wheel drive, smaller batteries, two-wheel drives, there's a good mixture out there, a few different specs. This one's a Namsan Edition, and I've owned a P45 before. In fact, this one's got the digital wing mirrors here, but you can get conventional mirrors as well. Look, the Hyundai is just a bit alternative, isn't it? I love that it's a bit different to the normal. So well done, Hyundai, for doing that. It's a very comfortable car too. It's got great comfortable seats, good space in the back. It's got a lovely, soft, smooth ride. Now, it's not on air suspension, but it's got that kind of ride comfort to it. It feels like it does. It's just not height adjustable. Good spacious car, very refined, very comfortable. There's a few harder plastics if you look around inside, and I'm not such a fan of the graphics on the screen, but it's quite simple and easy to use. You can get 250, 300 miles out of it if you're careful, but what this also does is very fast charging speed. So it's a fast charging car. There's a video I've made previously where I drove one of these from Edinburgh down to here, and a very comfortable car to do that in, and it charges quickly as I could scoff down some chicken noodles if I remember rightly. So it's a good all-rounder, practical and nice and comfortable and relaxing. Ikea E-Niro. Big battery, very efficient car as well. Again, it's one of those cars, for the money, it's great value. So let me give you an idea. This car here is £20,000. In fact, just under, you get change. And it's got a great spec, leather seats, heated steering wheel, heated seats, obviously nav, Bluetooth, LED headlights. It's a good all-rounder. It's not kind of the most exciting car in the world, but it's just a good all-rounder. It's good and comfortable. Not quite as big as some. It is a bit smaller here. But for the value for money, £20,000 gets you a good high-spec example like this. And driven sensibly, you can do 300 miles out of one of these, even more. Especially around town on A-road commuting. It's just a very efficient car, one of the most efficient out there. One of the only ones that competes with Tesla, to be honest. You can get 5 miles per kilowatt out of one of these, which is pretty good. On the motorway, it's not quite as aerodynamic, so it falls down a little bit. But again, we've done a couple of videos of the Kia E-Niro, and it's just a good all-rounder. And now that they're under £20,000, even for good low-mileage, high-spec examples like this, pretty good value, I reckon. So if this fits the bill, if it's big enough, it's worth considering. Then you've got the big one, the Tesla Model X. It is vast. So 5, 6 or 7 seat versions, smaller battery versions like the X75Ds, all the way right up to the very last cars like this one. The one of the last of the right-hand drive, I should say. Obviously, you just can't buy a new one now unless you take left-hand drive, which, yeah, you can't buy a new one now unless it's left-hand drive. So this is a 70 plate. It's the last of the right-hand drives. Price of these, you see a real mixture on the used market. An older, high mileage X75D, you can find them for £30,000, but limited range on those. That's a second car. If you don't do many miles, it's great. Of course, the Tesla supercharger network's behind it, so it's still very easy to charge. But you're looking at a real-world range of those, certainly under 200 miles, more like 160 to 200. Go right up to later, long-range Ravens that we call these later versions, which are more efficient, big battery. You can do 300 miles with some sensible driving. So great cars, but then that takes the price up to about more like 60 and even a bit more, £1,000. Of course, there's a performance version available as well, which is super fast, but even just a normal long-range late one like this is plenty quick enough, has a great spec, of course, a great space. Now, when it comes to space, I've got some boxes over here, so let's quickly run through each car and how many Ikea packing boxes we can fit in. We started using these, this is a smaller version of the standard Ikea packing boxes. We did a video recently comparing the Nissan Ariya, which just about got 15 of these in, which is the same as a Tesla Model Y. This is a Tesla Model X. There's 15 boxes on there. So basically we're loading it up apart from space from 2 passengers at the front, the driver and the front seat passenger. The Model X has still got all this space under the boot floor here as well, and I've just run out of boxes. Now, one thing that is worth noting, and you may see here, this is a 6-seat version, and when you have a 6-seat version of Model X, those middle row of seats don't fold down. They don't fold flat. Now, the earlier 7 seats also don't, but the later 7 seats do, and a 5-seat does as well. Does that make sense? Hope so. It's worth noting, the Model X even has enough space for one of these boxes in its front, because it's got such a big front space. There's one of them there as well. But so much space, you don't even need to use it. I'm gonna get, no, that's it. Okay, it's 12 boxes for the Kia E-Niro. It's worth noting there's no front storage at all, so it is only what you've got in the back here. It's quite nice and square, but like, it's just not as big as the Model X, so that's it, 12 complete boxes. Not quite 15, 14 boxes for the Hyundai Ioniq 5. It's quite wide here, but actually it's not as deep as you might think. And it only got the 14 out of 15, so that's one less than the Ariya, actually. Yep. Is it one more? How many we got there? 4. So 11. That's not bad, actually. Look. Yeah, just about. So the MG is 11 boxes. It's notably not quite as wide here, but look, it's a smaller car. 11, not too bad. So yeah, again, it's quite an easy 15 for the Model Y. There's actually one under the boot floor here. There's actually room for more bits across here as well. Nice practical load space, and there's buttons here just to fold the seats down from the back. This is a later one with the parcel shelf, which actually is a pain because you've got to take it out. I actually prefer the ones at the parcel shelf. Jaguar iPace 13. I tried sort of changing all these around as best as I could, but 13, 2 left. My lovely clean e-tron here. Just about managed to get all 15 of the boxes in. Now bear in mind this is the sportback version. So if you had the non-sportback version, you'd have a bit more space here, but 15 in. BMW X5, 15 boxes, room for a couple more, so you're probably talking about 17. And the Mercedes GLC, again, point of comparison, we've got one here.
One box is falling out of the window.
It did. No, it's okay. No.
Yeah, okay, we good.
Okay, that's fair play. Mercedes GLC, bit of a squash here, but all 15 in, actually, which kind of surprised me. It's not that big a car, but it's just nice and square, actually. So 15 for the GLC did pretty well, actually. So I hope that's a useful point of comparison. We'll put a summary table up here now, please, Gints, of all the different cars and how much they fitted in. As expected, really, Model X, tons of space in that. But I hope that's a useful point of comparison if you've got one of these, thinking one of those and that kind of thing. So I know that's a really quick run through of each car, quick practicality test. But we have covered a lot of these cars, not the GLC, a lot of these cars in other videos in more detail. So do check out our channel list for other detailed review videos of each of these cars. But hopefully that's something useful to consider in the meantime. So if you want an electric SUV, good choice out there. I know there's a couple of cars that aren't here. What have we got? Maybe Mercedes EQC. That's not bad. That's in a previous video, including the box test on that one. But it's a good choice out there. It's horses for courses. Which one's right for you? Depends what you need. Range, efficiency, space. So do contact us. Leave your comments below. Try and read through all those if we can. And thank you for watching. We'll see you on the next video very soon.